Hello everyone, Nick the DM here to take a look at another of the Planar Dragons from Dungeons & Dragons. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Oceanus Dragon and then looking at how I statted them out for 5th edition. So let's get into it. Oceanus Dragons come from the 3.5 Draconomicon. These dragons resemble great winged eels, with 4 relatively short limbs that end in webbed fingers. The picture we are given in the Draconomicon depicts the Oceanus dragons as being somewhat pearlescent like a pearl or even iridescent like a soap bubble. We can also see that the dragon appears to have many scales and some smaller wings compared to other dragons. And it is mentioned that while capable of flight, the Oceanus dragons prefer to stay in the water. Actually, despite their deceptively small wings, according to their 3.5 stats, these dragons are just as adept at flying as other dragons, such as the Bronze Dragon. These dragons live in and along the Oceanus, a multiplanar river that flows through and between the upper planes, such as Elysium, the Beastlands, and Arborea, as well as sometimes being connected to the Gates of the Moon in Ysgard, but that is dependent on the tides. Due to their serpentine appearance and where they dwell, the Oceanus dragon can be seen as an opposite to the Styx dragon, which I have previously covered in another video, just like how the river Oceanus is the counterpart to the river Styx. The typical lair of an Oceanus dragon is a hidden cave, either along a riverbank or completely underwater. Most Oceanus dragons spend little time in their lairs, instead patrolling a stretch of river in search of good-aligned creatures in need of assistance or evil creatures in need of punishment. Though it is said that they do happen to visit Dragon Eyrie once in a while. In combat, the Oceanus dragons prefer to end fights quickly, using their Tranquility Breath weapon and spell-like abilities to neutralize foes. However, they aren't afraid to go toe-to-toe with particularly resistant opponents, using their Lightning Breath weapon, Smite Evil ability, and prodigious melee attacks to make short work of their enemies. And I'll get to the Smite Evil ability later in the stat block. Now that is it for the lore on the Oceanus dragons. However, the video isn't done yet. I, like in my other videos, have converted the Oceanus dragons to 5th edition, with some minor changes due to ability changing between editions. So I'm going to walk you through the Ancient Oceanus dragon stats that I made for 5th edition. Ancient Oceanus Dragon, a gargantuan dragon, neutral good, has an armor class of 22, 351 hit points, 18 d20 plus 162, and then 3 different movement speeds: 40 feet of fly, or 40 feet of on-ground movement, 80 feet of flying, and 60 feet of swimming. Ability scores: 27 strength, 14 dexterity, 28 constitution, 20 intelligence, 16 wisdom, and 24 charisma, so quite a force to be reckoned with. Saving throws, quite like metallic dragons, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, and charisma proficiencies. For proficiency in skills, expertise in perception, and proficiency in stealth. Damage immunities, it has immunity to lightning damage. Senses, like most dragons, blindsight out to 60 feet, dark vision 120, and then of course passive perception is pretty high at a 25. Languages, the Oceanus dragons all the time speak Aquan, Celestial, and Draconic, though this can of course change between individual dragons, that's just the baseline. Has a challenge rating of 20 at the Ancient category. Oceanus dragons are amphibious, which means they can breathe air and water. Their next ability is Divine Smite. Now in 3.5 it was called Smite Evil, so I looked into that, and that was the exact same as the ability that Paladins had in 3.5. So I just took the Paladin ability Divine Smite from 5th edition and gave it to the Oceanus Dragon, and I allowed it to do it a number of times equal to its Charisma modifier. Now they only get this ability at Adult, so it really only has Divine Smite 5 times per day at Adult level and Divine Smite 7 times per day at Ancient. So it does it can choose to do an additional 2d8 additional radiant damage on a hit when it hits a creature, and of course if it's an undead or a fiend, that damage increases to 3d8. Legendary resistance 3 times per day, like most ancient dragons. Like all planar dragons from the age category of young and older, they have magical weapons, so any wormling Oceanus dragons do not have natural magical weapons. Innate spellcasting. Here's where gets interesting because quite a few abilities and spells change between editions. A charisma-based DC 21 save and plus 13 to hit. At will, it can use Detect Evil and Good. In older editions, this was just Detect Evil, but that's fine, Detect Evil and Good. 3 times per day each, control water and water breathing. Now, why do they have water breathing? They're amphibious. Well, if they wanted to bring any adventurers down to their caves or save anyone who was drowning, they'd use water breathing on the creature. Additionally, once per day each, they have Dispel Evil and Good. This was in older editions just Dispel Evil, so I said that if they're using Dispel Evil and Good, they can only use it on fiends or undead, so they couldn't use it on Celestials, Fae, etc., etc. Additionally, they have Holy Weapon, which was Holy Smite in older editions, which was kind of like the spell version of current Divine Smite, which is kind of strange. I just gave them Holy Weapon because it's concentration for a long period of time and they have a very high constitution modifier, so they can use that repeatedly. Or they can use it once per day, but it lasts for a while. And then Whirlwind, which was Control Wind, but Whirlwind is the closest thing to the 3.5 Control Wind, so that's the spell I gave them for this ability. Multi-attack, like most dragons, frightful Presence, then a bite and 2 claws. Its bite is 2d10 plus 8 piercing damage and a plus 14 to hit. Its claw plus 14 to hit. And with its claw, I only gave it a reach of 5 because they did say they had specifically smaller limbs. At least they're 4 tiny legs, so I kept that at a reach of 5 feet consistently. And then their tail is a plus 14 to hit as well with 2d8 plus 8 bludgeoning damage. Frightful Presence, of course, scaring any targets within a certain radius, 120 feet, DC 21 saving throw. And now we get into the interesting ones, breath weapons. So it has 2 breath weapons, like most Planar Dragons and like current 5th edition metallic dragons. It has a lightning breath, which is an 100-foot line at ancient and 5 feet wide. Each creature must make a DC 23 dexterity saving throw, taking 77 or 14 d10 lightning damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. Then we have their Tranquility Breath. Now this one was a little difficult because it gave a very specific status effect from 3.5, which was only in 3.5, and there's not entirely a 5th edition equivalent. But as far as looking back and forth and researching, it basically is just incapacitated, which means they can't take actions or bonus actions, so basically they're just standing there vibing. They're not paralyzed, you don't get advantage or instant crits on the attack rolls, they're just there. So this is just kind of like if someone starts attacking the dragon right away, they use Tranquility Breath, get everyone to calm down a little bit while they talk it out. Because they can still talk and move while incapacitated, they just can't, actually use actions. Now this lasts for 1 minute. It can be repeated. The saving throw can be repeated at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success, and it is a DC 23 Constitution save. Legendary actions, I kept it pretty simple, like the normal Ancient Dragon legendary actions. I gave it Detect, except instead of just being able to do a Wisdom check, it would also be the Oceanus Dragon could also use Detect Evil and Good as well, because that's kind of just like a 30-foot radius of perception, but specifically for evil or good creatures. So it just makes it a little bit more interesting. Then the tail attack, as normal, makes a tail attack, and then wing attack I changed slightly. The dragon beats its wings. Each creature within 10 feet of the dragon must succeed on a DC 22 dexterity saving throw, taking 15 2d8 or 2d6 plus 8 bludgeoning damage and being knocked prone. The dragon can then fly up to half its flying speed. However, I added an addition because this is an Oceanus dragon, very specifically water-based. If the dragon is in water, it can instead swim up to half its swimming speed. So this would be a little bit better for the dragon, especially because then it can get into cover, and then being underwater gives it innate resistance to fire. So it just makes it a little bit more thematic for the Oceanus dragon. Alright, and that is it for the stat block. I also made Wormling, Young, and Adult stats for the Oceanus Dragon, so if you take a look in the description, you will find a link where I posted those on my Tumblr. Anyways, that is all I have for today's video. If you liked what I did here, please give this video a like and subscribe for more videos like this. Also, if you're looking for more D&D content, I have a number of other videos on my channel if you want to check those out, including a playlist on all the Planar Dragons I've talked about and have covered so far, which will in the future include, I'm hoping, all of the Planar Dragons from earlier editions. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!